that we're recording it now. So these webinars are to help you with, in addition to the training that you would have got at the beginning. It's not to replace training. We're really targeting specific areas of the software where we get more support calls or more questions about. So that's why we pick these topics. It runs approximately 15 minutes to an hour, depending on the subject. I do leave time in there for questions, so it could end early or it could go later than the hour. So we'll just see how we go along. So today, tea time management. So our tea time management, as you know, it's a golf reservation booking system for members and their guests or guests. This is what we do is we make sure that you've got your golf rules and we are putting them in there. So when we're doing our tea time, yesterday we did tee sheet management, where we're doing the templates of what it's on. So the template of the tee sheet tells us what time do we open, what time do we close, or what's the first tee time, what's the ending tee time, how often are the tee times. There are a couple of other rules in there, 18-hole versus 9-hole, but now we're going to talk about the actual people going to be playing on it. So basically, golfer classifications tell us who can do what and when. So what is a golfer? What is it considered a guest? And how does a round the golf rule affect members and guests? So this is things that we're going to be going on through, and we'll keep on going back through all the different parts. So how does a guest round the golf rule affect our members and guests? So there's a round the golf rule, and there's a guest round the golf rule. This does not mean these rounds of golf rules affect guests and this rounds of golf rule affects members. They're actually both for members or for golfers. So in Jonas, a golfer classification, every player in Jonas is a golfer. Every player has a golfer classification. The classification itself is assigned to the golfer through a member account or a status, meaning in some of our clubs, we have, we'll attach it that you don't have to actually assign a golfer classification to a specific member. It just picks up with their member status. You can make specific fields mandatory in the golfer classification, so you can't not put this kind of information in. And the golfer can be a guest that always has a classification, and that will always be assigned that based on either the course or their tee sheet set up by the tee sheet. So I'll show you what those are in just one moment. So what we've got here is the classification. So the first part is, and I'm going to go into Jonas. Oops, where's my Jonas? There we go. So I am in Jonas. I went to Tea Time Management Files, and I've gone to Golfer Classifications. And I've just brought up one of my golfer classifications here, one called Member. And what we have here on the main screen is what is their code, what's the description of them, is there a booking restriction in effect, meaning how far in advance can I book? I've put 7 days. And then there's a bunch of restrictions here of certain times. This date and time schedule is only used back office. If you are using online, you have to use the restrictions in the rounds of golf rules, and we'll be going through that. The other parts that we have in here are point-of-sale items, other types of options, accompaniments, advanced booking schedules, required fields, and what happens with lottery. So in here, the golfer classification, it's going to tell us when a golfer can play, date, time, and course. As I said, this is often used in the golf round of golf rules. Who must be playing in the reservation with them? So if it's a guest or it's a junior, maybe juniors can't play by themselves, they have to be playing with somebody else. You can actually force it, they have to have somebody else in the reservation with them. How much should I charge them to play? And do they require any additional resources, and should I be charging them for those resources? So in here, as I said, daily reservations, we can use these also as a quick thing to check, but most people, as I said, use the rounds of golf rules. I use this for some of the guest ones as I'll put it in here that they can't play on certain days or certain afternoons or something like that, but I still use the rounds of golf rules. So let's go into and see how we can charge people. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to the point of sale items. So here's my member, and And when I go in here, you'll see I have some listings here. So they're not saying what line it is, but I'm just going to bring this one up. So in here, I've said I'd like to charge an 18-hole cart fee one time when they play 18 holes and they book a golf cart. So it's actually going to charge them for my cart rental when I attach it. If this one here, I have a 9-hole cart rental, I said I'm going to charge them one when I play 9 holes and it's a cart fee. The other things that we have in here, here's this one, Twilight Golf 9-hole. Now this one I've said that you charge this when they play 9 holes, and I said there's restrictions in effect. When they play, charge this amount when they play after 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Monday through Thursday. Now it's quite possible I have a different, try this one, that's a 9-hole greens fee that I've said charge on Monday through Thursday from 6 a.m. until 5:59 p.m. because the twilight clicks in at 6 p.m. And so when I play 9 holes, it's going to do that. So the combination of two things can go on. I can, when I go in to pick the person for a 9-hole at a certain time, and they have a cart fee, it's going to pull both of those in. So I'm just going to quickly go into a reservation and just give you the example of that. Just so you can see. So I'm going into open just a T-sheet. That'll be fine. So let's go to close to, and yes, we're in the right time. Oh, we may have to squeeze the time out of this. But if I go in here and I pick a member, and you see that they're a member 1, you'll notice he has an 18-hole green fee and 18-hole cart. I'm going to change it to a 9-hole. He's got a 9-hole cart and 9-hole green fee. How did he get the cart fee? My member has a default transportation requirement. He said he always drives a cart, so it automatically did it. If I said he walks, it takes it off. Now let's go back here, and we're going to add another time. We're going to squeeze a tea time in at 6 o'clock. So I have a 6 o'clock one here. Now 6 o'clock says I have twilight. So if I go in here and I pick that exact same member, notice I did it for 9-hole. I've got a twilight 9-hole now because I'm after 6 o'clock and I still have my cart rentals because my member says he likes to have carts, but I can walk them. So that's what those point of sales do for you. So you don't have to remember to change them or anything like that. So we're going back to files. Back into golfer classification. So just to go back over this, every golfer has a golfer classification. Members usually have it attached to them in some sort of fashion. It's either through a status or it's through their member file, which I'll go to. Even guests have a golfer classification. It just may not be attached to them. When you say, I have a guest play, it automatically has a guest golfer classification. So in the point of sale, you attach any item that you want to automatically pull through when they play or when they get a reservation. It can be a greens fee, a cart fee, a rental club fee, a caddy fee. When you're setting these up, you select the point of sale. You say how many times do you want to charge it. You say when they're playing either 18-9 or it doesn't matter. And if it's a green fee, you don't click on anything. If it's one of these, you put that on there, and it will automatically do it. And then you can say at what time do they do this. You have to use the times if, such as like the twilights, if I didn't say that the regular greens fee ended at 5:59 and then I added in the twilight at 6 o'clock, it would charge me both of them. So it would have charged me a regular 9-hole and then a twilight. I have to remember to end one and start one. So the golfer classification, the golfer classifications, there are some types of restrictions that we have. I'll just kind of go back to those in a second. So first of all, here's options for the golfer classifications. If you want your tee sheet to have a color to show you which type of golfer it is, you can have specific colors. I have a short form, the name member. I have a reporting group where if I want to run a report, say, hey, show me all the reservations relating to, and I have a member group, and I have a guest group, and I have a corporate group and an other group. This has to do with lottery. Somebody can always have a certain type of tee time request waiting. This has to do with where they are able to get tee times more often based on the request if you're using a lottery. And then this part here where it says secondary golfer classification and use. So in here, I have a guest here, and this is where I have a guest next to this. I've stated in my golf course, just so you can see this in a second, when I have a guest play, automatically it should be public, and I'm going to show you how this works, that it changes it. So I can have what's called accompanied guests, and then I have other types of guests. So when I am making a reservation for a member and their guests, I'm just going to do this, and I bring in a member, by default, it made them all guests, everybody else. When I didn't have a member in there, when I first went into that, they're all public. And if I don't pick a member, that doesn't, I'm just going to, actually, that one's a member too, so it changed it. So it very nicely will attach the appropriate secondary golfer classifications if my members have different ones. So one of the most popular things are accompanied guests versus non-accompanied guests. I'm going to go back to my member file again. So under here, when I automatically put in a member, any other associated player in that reservation that is not a member or have their own account, it will automatically make them guest players. Now, if I had 4 members playing there, they'd all have their own golf classification. Now, the other thing that we have is, if I go back to my guests, here's a company guest. So if I went into here, actually that's the one that should be on my members. I might go back to my members and make it company guest instead of guest. Those are club guests, not company guests. In my company guest, a company guest means that a member is playing with them. So under accompaniments, I have said that they must either have a member playing with them or a senior member playing with them. So I'm going to show you what happens if I don't have that. So I go in here and I have 2 people playing, and I'm just going to put in my name, and I'm going to say confirm. Oh, it let me. Oh, because I didn't say guest, company guest. I'm sorry. Accompanying guest. So the golfer classification is not permitted due to that. I need an accompaniment of something. So it will not let me put it in here. I personally have an override restriction on mine. You can give that to certain people if you want to make sure that they can override restrictions. But if I didn't have this, it would not let me put in an accompanied guest unless I had another member in there. So if I put a member in here and then go back and make this accompanied guest, it will accept it. Date and time doesn't like though, but that's a different story. So, golfer classification. Every golfer has a golfer classification, everybody who plays. You can select what you want to build them. You have options of when you're putting it in of what it looks like, and that if there's anybody who's is like a non-associated member or account, it will automatically can give them a specific type of golfer classification for the guest. For certain types of things, you can put accompaniments. My members don't require accompaniments, so I don't have any in here. And now let's take a look at the advanced booking schedules. In here, booking restrictions, I've said that I can book 7 days in advance. If I left it at that, that means at 12:01 on the day that the advanced booking is allowed, I could put in there. And so what some people said, this is unfair to members who don't have computer access, so if you had online. So you can actually go in and say you can't do it until 8 a.m. in the morning, which is the same time the Pro Shop opens, so the people who have to call in to make reservations have the same ability to get those early tea times as the person who has a computer. And then what's new in this year is required fields, where you can say, when I'm making a reservation, what kind of information do I require? So you could go in there and say, when I'm putting a member, I need a member number. I need an email address, because I send out that. And any phone number. I require one phone number. And then there's different options. Don't apply this to club members, do not apply to club guests, whatever. So you could put these types of things in here if you wanted to. But if you put that in there, it means that you can't just put in a name and run. You'll always have a way to contact them. Then the other thing that we have on here, this has to do with the online for the lottery. We are trying to say that if you have a lottery, that you only want the lottery to affect certain types of golfers. So some people can be in the lottery and some people can't. Because if you attach a lottery, it seems like everybody's in the lottery. So you can say this golfer doesn't belong to the lottery. This would only be in regards to members for lottery. So as I said, you can see all the options that you can set to people. The accompaniment rules, the advanced booking, and now we're going to go into rounds of golf rules. So as I stated, every golfer has a golf classification. Rounds of golf rules tell me what kind of rules apply against those golfers. So rounds of golf rule tells me when I can play, where I can play, how often I can play. So in here, I've picked up, I've set up a code called Member AB, Active Booking Restriction. Put in here, note this rule is to be reviewed at the annual committee meeting. Maybe I want to do this. And I've put in here, the first part of my rule is you can't play more than 2 times per week. And after you play one, it's going to give us a threshold message to say, oh, by the way, did you know you already played one so far? And it applies against only a specific course. So in here, I've done it this way, and I've also said the number of family members that are allowed on the course at the same time as well. There's lots of things. I'm going to go through these. But maybe this is a special course that you only do this, but you have another course that we don't care how often they play that one. So then I have a rounds per month one. So this one says I can play 8 rounds per month, and I can play 96 rounds per year. Maybe this is a limited golfer where you do that. Some of them might be unlimited. As soon as you put in any type of restriction, and I'm going to bring up a different type of restriction here, where we talked about on the other one with when can somebody play, I could ignore the rounds of golf, like how many times you can play, and just kind of go, I have a restriction on this course, and I want to go in here and say, when can I play? So one of the biggest things about doing the restrictions for this, if I put a restriction in when I can play, let's say on Sundays, I can only play after, let's say, 2 p.m. Now, I always put in a really late time on this because my tee sheet cuts off the date. So if I say 11 p.m., because if you're in the north, you could play quite late, maybe not 11 p.m. because of the sunlight, but it's the tee sheet that will put in the last time. But if I do this and say, okay, I don't want them to play on Sundays until after 2, if I just leave it at that, what happens is I can't play any other time because I've now restricted myself to that. So I would have to go back in and say, I am restricted on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and holidays, but I have no time. So I can play on those days. Sunday is the only one that I'm restricted on. So a couple of the other ones are, they can be date ranges too. So maybe this only applies to January 1st to May 31st. So once again, make sure that when you're putting in these rules, that you've covered all the areas of what you're doing. So if you're saying I'm restricted on these months to these dates, make sure you say when you can play as well. I can change the number of days in advance I'm allowed for this rule. I can say that I can only play if the tee sheet, the template, if only this template is being used. So if it's a regular day template that I've created, then these would only apply to that. And then the last thing that somebody had on here was we had some places that had huge number of families always playing, so they say that at only one time, the number of dependents in a family in any specific grouping of a family could be playing at the same time. So they could say 4, 2, 4. You know, I think the reason it came up was there was this huge family of something like 25, and they're always hogging the golf course. Now remember, in a lot of places, you know, when you're paying for a family membership, they don't really say how many people. They just assume there's an amount of people that are, you know, between 4 and 6 people or something like that. So in here are rounds of golf rules. These affect golfers. All right, so either they're members or in the guest database. And they tell us when they can play and how often they can play. So a rounds of golf rule affects a golfer, whether they're guest or member. The guest round of golf rule affects the golfer who's bringing a guest. It's not against the guest. The guest has their own rounds of golf rule. So I am a golfer, I'm a member, and I can play anytime I want. But they have no restrictions. When I bring in a company guest can only play on Saturday afternoons. So I can say in my rounds of guest ones is how often they can play, when they can play, and who can play. So if we go to a guest rounds of golf rule, so in here I have stated in my rules that a guest, club guest, can play 2 times per month or 18 times between May and August. Now, that means I have to for this to apply, that means I have to register them in the system as a guest. They actually have to have in the database. Otherwise, how would I know who they are? If I don't put them in the guest database, these can't apply to them. And on here, where I have my 2 different courses, I have said that guests can play only between 11 and 2 on these dates, and I can have a member always has to be playing with them. That's a member of guests total of 3. There's also company rules. And then on this course, they can play on those days, but there's no time restriction. So maybe this is my fancy course, this is my regular course. So your guest rounds of golf rules apply to the people that you're bringing, not the golfer itself. They're still against you. So there's, let's go to another guest one here. That's another rule. They can only play for so many things, so let's find another one. So accompanied guest, I've said on here, there's a bunch of rules in here. So I've said accompanied guests can come on Sundays, Saturdays, and holidays in the morning only, and I can only bring 1 guest. Then it says for my company guests, on Mondays through Fridays, I can bring as many as I want, and there's no time restriction. And then on Sundays, Saturdays, and holidays, then I can play after noon. So I've just got some weird dates in there. So there are some things where I've got some restrictions in there. So when I go to bring a guest, and if it's on a Saturday, it may stop me from being allowed to bring certain accompanying guests. So these rules that we have here, so we have a golfer classification, we have a rounds of golf rule, and we have a guest rounds of golf rule. So what we do is that you kind of go through your rule books of what you have, and you can kind of build these up, making all of these rules. So this is an easy way to understand it. I am the golfer. My classification, so my golfer classification tells me what type of golfer I am, how much I pay to play, and do I need another type of golfer with me when I play. My rounds of golf rules tell me when I can play, how many times I can play, and where I can play. And my guest rounds of golf rules tells me who I can bring, how many times I can bring them, and when I can bring them. And that guest themselves has a classification which tells them what type of golfer they am, how much they pay to play, and do they have to have somebody with them. Their rounds of golf rules say when they can play, how many times they can play, and where they can play. So imagine a golfer classification is about the player. The rounds of golf rules is about the player. The guest rounds of golf rule is about the player. They all apply to one person. So let's go take a look of where we would be putting these in. So let's go to club management. The simple way of doing this is most people might have member status rules that tell you what type of membership they have. Now, see, I have something called active, which is where I wouldn't be using it, but let's pretend this said full member. I could go in here and say tee time, a full member has a golfer classification of member, a rounds of golf rule called member, and then a guest rounds golf rule called guest. If I had lottery, I could pick that. So what it would be is that anybody in this status would have the same one. Now, if you are using active as your statuses, but you have golf rules for men versus women versus types of billing things, you can do it at the member level. So if I go into a member, there is a tee time management set up over here where those exact same things are in there. And this is also where I have my preferences of I always like to use a golf cart. Maybe I have a preferred caddy. I have a nickname instead of my real name. I want to use my familiar name in place of my given name. I'm exempt from any of the restrictions. Maybe I'm a special member. Maybe I'm a high-ranking PGA golfer, and they don't apply to me. I can play whenever I want, so you could do that. So those are the two places that you could put it. The status, if your statuses are by your member types and they match them, you can use the status rules to do it. Otherwise, you do it at the member thing, at the member account level. Now, the one thing is if you are using our online tee times, every member or every member status must have a golfer classification, a rounds of golf rule, and a guest rounds of golf rule. If you're not using online, you don't have to have the other ones. They're just very helpful when you're designing your golfers, the rules and such. But if you're doing online, it has to be there. So, any questions in a very quiet group? This is the easiest way to tell what it does. As I said, there's a copy of this in PDF format on the website, and the recording will be sent off to them. It might take a few days to get the recording up on the website. But this one helps you with that. So are there any questions? This one wasn't very long, only a half hour. Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody coming out today. We have webinars almost every single day, so you can feel free to join anything that you want. Any comments, concerns, compliments, or anything like that, you can email us at training@jonasclub.com. We always appreciate it. And if there's anything, a suggestion for a webinar also, please email us at training@jonasclub.com. Thank you very much.